Hello and welcome back to No Kings on the Hill with Dr. Hill Law and Joe St. Clair. Now, Joe's having a little technical issue, so he's trying to get it fixed, so he should be back up here in a minute. Now, obviously, No Kings on the Hill is a podcast dedicated to cutting through the bullshit and focusing on the truth, the Constitution, and consequences for the sake of American sovereignty. If you've ever been frustrated by partisan talking points, biased media coverage, and out-of-touch elite rhetoric that just doesn't speak to everyday Americans, then this show is for you. Before we get started, a quick note. If you enjoy straightforward, common sense legal analysis through a conservative lens, please consider subscribing and clicking that notification bell right over there. And while you're at it, share this episode with a friend who you know will also appreciate getting clarity over chaos. Also, check out our website, scrolling across the bottom of the screen. Well, it's actually not on this one. I forgot to turn it off on this one because it's my solo, but I'll put it back up there. No Kings on the Hill with drlaw.com. We are live every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time on the Patriots Para Network and Q Broadcasting and the PPN on Rumble, Facebook, and X, along with our show's YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and X pages. We also are broadcasting from CPAC this year, so hope to see you there. And then, like I said, just go to the website, and then there's all the links to all of our socials on there where you can catch the current and past episodes. Now to a word from our sponsors, and then we'll get into the show.
Heard of Q Broadcast? It's taking the world by storm. People are cutting the cord to their high cable bills and moving away from streaming services like Netflix, Hulu, and others for something better. Q Broadcast. For just $60 a month, you'll get access to every channel you could ever want, including HBO, Cinemax, and Stars. And the best part? There are no contracts, no hidden fees, and you're free to cancel anytime. With Q Broadcast, you can enjoy streaming live TV, movies, and top series on up to 5 devices at once. Whether you're at home or on the go, Q Broadcast makes sure your entertainment is always at your fingertips. Imagine being able to watch all your favorite channels from anywhere, anytime, without any restrictions. We're talking about thousands of movies, hundreds of TV series, and a huge library of live channels, all in one place. And don't forget video on demand and pay-per-view events. Those are included at no extra cost, so you'll never miss a big event again. Now, take a second and think about your current cable bill. You're probably paying anywhere between $100 and $300 every month, locked into long-term contracts and hit with surprise rate increases. With Q Broadcast, that's a thing of the past. It's just $60 a month. No contracts, no extra fees, no hidden costs, and no price hikes. Why juggle multiple subscriptions like Netflix, Hulu, and cable when Q Broadcast gives you everything you need in one convenient package? People everywhere are switching to Q Broadcast, saving money and getting more content than ever before. So, what are you waiting for? Click the link in the description and sign up for Q Broadcast today. Just $60 a month, no contracts, no hidden fees. It's time to take control of your entertainment and start streaming smarter.
Okay, so Wednesday was oral arguments for the West Virginia v. BPJ, the case which brought the original meaning of Title IX to our nation's highest court. Will Congress's definition of sex in 1972 be overwritten by administrative whim to literally scrub biology from the statutes of law and corporate athletes? That's what the question is. We covered the big questions from the originalist justice on the bench, why their questions make sense constitutionally, and the straight-up nonsense arguments we have heard from the left attempting to redefine what sex means or not mean in the case of one argument, that if accepted, it would not only end Title IX, but render meaningless everyone other law that distinguishes based on sex. But all this is just the tip of the iceberg. In this episode, later we turn to Minneapolis to talk about the story of the fatal shooting of a U.S. citizen by ICE, the nationwide protest it has spurred, and the fight for control between sanctuary cities and federal leaders. We also take on the story not enough people are talking about, Greenland, how its control could affect our national security, deterrence, and strategic defense, and the most important reason why the U.S. can't let the high North fall into hostile hands. Now, I've got Joe back. Before I bring him up here, I'm going to go ahead and just do my monologue, cover the importance of this Supreme Court case, since that's not the subjects he really likes to talk on, and then we will switch over to the ICE shooting and everything and start going on that. So I'm not going to cover the whole show on the Supreme Court case, but I am going to give overall just kind of do a little monologue and a summation of what it looks like we're going to see based on the Supreme Court justices and what they're questioning, their lines of questioning, and the answers that were dealt with from that. So let's set the record straight on what happened yesterday at the Supreme Court in West Virginia v. BPJ. Strip away the media spin and the body language experts and read the transcript, and it was all there in the questions. West Virginia is going to win. For the originalist justices, the central question is not what do you think sex means, but what did Congress mean when it passed Title IX in 1972 and reaffirmed it in 1974? And it turns out the answer is quite obvious. Unless you are a contemporary revisionist, Justice Clarence Thomas began at first principles. He asked the most basic question: does the term sex, as used in Title IX, mean anything other than biological sex? As it was generally understood when Title IX was enacted, West Virginia Solicitor General Ryan Hayes answered as any originalist court would expect. You look to the original public meaning at the time of enactment or later amendment, not some ideological revisionist definition we concoct in the future. What sex meant in 1972 or 1974 was male and female, and it was understood, as Hayes went on to explain, to be grounded in biology, reproductive function, physiology, and physical difference, to name a few. None of that is opinion. It is historical fact. Justice Neil Gorsuch then cut to the chase and went even further than Thomas, getting to a point that will ultimately be very troubling for the left. Gorsuch emphasized that Title IX is a spending clause statute. States are not just signing up for it, they are entering into like a contract. The federal government is forcing states to agree to new terms with their own money, meaning Congress has to speak with a clear voice. The ACLU made much of the fact that the Department of Education has said its regulations permit the recognition of gender identity, but here is what Gorsuch said. You can't point to one single sentence in the Title IX, its implementing regulations, or the department's guidance, where a state unambiguously agrees to pay damages to have its own sex-separated athletes programs based on male and female biological differences, radically transformed by including males and females in the same team. The ACLU literally cannot point to one word where the states agreed to take this on this obligation to have sex-separated athletes redefined to be based not on sex, but gender identity, require them to include boys with girls and males with females in the same teams or lose federal funding. And if the ACLU cannot pinpoint to a single word of express notice, an originalist court is going to say the states did not have clear notice, period. Justice Kavanaugh repeatedly returned to the Javitas Amendment because the left does not want to talk about this historical document. Congress in 1972, in plain words, said, this is to the regulator, you shall permit separate competition on the basis of sex where the participant's gender identity differs from their biological sex, because it is not boys' sports versus girls' sports, it is men's sports versus women's sports based on biology, because men have advantages in, well, every sport by virtue of their biology. Men's sports are men's sports because of their biological differences between the sexes. The Javitas Amendment was a mere afterthought, a one-sentence rider tucked on at the last minute to appease a few old white men, as many of the left think of it. It was debated, deliberately written. A direct expression by Congress to allow sex-separated athletes because of biological differences, and it is devastating for the left because Kavanaugh made clear correctly that this case is not about whether the court might someday allow sex segregation in other areas. It is about whether it should force West Virginia to do so against its own law and in violation of Title IX's regulations, and the answer to that question is also no. Now, what about what we heard from the left? Obviously, the ACLU's answer to all of these questions is pretty remarkable. The ACLU stated explicitly at oral argument thinks that sex should not be defined for legal purposes. How is that even possible? Title IX is a sex-based statute. Women's sports exist because we can define sex. If you can't define what sex is, then you can't even have Title IX. The whole point of Title IX was to expand equal opportunities for girls and women. You do not expand civil rights law by eviscerating the protected category itself. Obviously, Justice Sotomayor and Justice Jackson try to take this on, wild flights of fancy about hypothetical situations in which these biological differences don't exist, or where male biological advantages are magically canceled out by testosterone suppression, or where women with high testosterone levels beat all other women, and the like. But even West Virginia's opponents had to concede something fundamental. The regulations, which are the point here, do not turn on hormone levels. They turn on sex, biology, end of story. This brings us to why the amicus brief from the government was so crucial. The Solicitor General simply stated the most basic facts of this case. The department's own regulations expressly authorized same-sex separated teams. The challengers did not challenge those regulations that were only a year old at the time this lawsuit was filed. And sex, as it is used in those regulations, quite clearly and unambiguously means biological sex. Case closed. If I had to pick one tell from yesterday, it is this: no originalist justice believes that biological males and biological females are similarly situated in the area of athletics. None. Thomas Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, Barrett, the left went into one argument after another. Gender identity, disparte impact, the Bostock comparison, every single one failed for the same basic reason. West Virginia's law is fancily neutral. It applies exactly the same rule to everyone, regardless of identity. Teams are based on biological sex, period. So the question is, in the end, what will the decision say? On the statutory armaments alone, I expect the court to reverse the Fourth Circuit and uphold West Virginia's law permitting sex-separated teams and events based on biology is precisely what Title IX and its regulators expressly allow. So simple. Moreover, the court will also likely rule that redefining sex to include gender identity without congressional action to do so violates spending clause notice requirements. What we almost certainly will not see is the court constitutionalizing this form of gender ideology. These cases are not radical. What is radical is the notion that protecting girls' sports is sex discrimination. Title IX was passed to open doors for women, not close them. And yesterday, the Supreme Court made clear which side of history and law the principle remains on. So let me go ahead and get my co-host up. All right, Joe, bring you on up. Oh, now I don't hear you. The mic's not coming through. No.
What about now?
Yep, there. Okay, now we're good.
Yeah, it was that software. That software from Logitech would not let the other microphone be detected. Isn't that crazy?
Yep, and that's what was screwing it up is you had one microphone plugged in and it was also trying to work out of the webcam mic, which webcam mics are always crappy anyways.
They worked perfectly until I downloaded that software, and then it works again. So words of the wise, don't download Logitech audio software.
But anyways, so yeah, I didn't get in that far into it yesterday, but pretty much this is just a basic. And what was even crazier is today they had in Congress, they were questioning a doctor like from a Ivy League school. And she was saying that we have to go off of science, not political ideology. And so the member in Congress of the House was a conservative one, obviously, was so, well, then based on science, can men have babies? And she wouldn't answer the question. She couldn't just say the simple answer is no, they can't. And it's like, but yet you said everything has to be on scientific fact, not ideology or political beliefs. And it's like, just because someone says they're a male doesn't mean they're a male. Just because a woman says she's a male and gets pregnant doesn't mean she's a man having a baby. I mean,
what does that say to the fact that she's afraid to make that comment, right?
Yeah.
That's academia for you. If you don't say what they want you to say, you're not going to get promoted. You're not going to get your works published. You're going to run into basically steamrolling, right? They're going to block you from going anywhere. So I get why she wouldn't give a non-answer. Why she gave a non-answer. I don't agree with it, but
yeah,
that's the state of our university system too.
Well, I just think of how years ago when we said, "Oh, global warming is not a thing," or "global warming is not man-made," they called us science deniers and all this bad stuff. But yet, when they can't acknowledge a simple fact that X and Y chromosomes are the only two chromosomes that exist, and if you're X or Y, you're one or the other. You can't be in between or mixed or halfway, except in rare instances where you're born as a hermaphrodite, but it's rare. And
I have an old book from 1911 that talks about the fear of global cooling. That was the panic then. So it's
I can remember. Well, I remember whenever we were young, and I think it's the sun cycles, because I can remember when I was young, it was global cooling. Then when I got towards the end of my high school years, beginning of when I just graduated high school, it was global warming. And then about 11 years later, it started cooling again. So they went to climate change.
Right.
Because what people forget, and that's why everybody's like, oh, this is a record hot winter. I'm like, yeah, we're at the last year of the 11-year solar cycle. We're at the hottest part, most active of the sun. That's why we had all of these aurora borealises this last year, and they were coming as far south as Texas. That's the whole point. So
yeah, we only have about 100 years of weather temperature records anyway. So
we have only about 150, 200 years that we can actually written down. Everything else is just guesstimated in estimates. But anyway, So yeah, this Supreme Court case just goes into the overall problem with the left and how far they've just lost their constitutional morality and their belief systems and everything, that they can't answer the simple facts. There's a difference of saying, hey, if somebody's got a mental disorder, because I'm sorry, if you're transgenderism is not it, nobody chooses to be that way. So it's either a mental disorder, they're having either it's chemical imbalances or it's genetic mutation, something. And there's something that's causing it, because nobody chooses to be that ridiculed, that different, that I mean, not anybody I've ever talked to that's
I
actually
mean,
that
people come in
person.
all shapes and sizes and mental
Yeah.
capacities and desires. So certainly think there's people out there that want to be victimized, right? There's
Yeah.
masochists, right? We know this.
Well, I'm just saying,
So,
but there's very
yeah.
few that actually want to be. The majority of all I have talked to have always said, no, I don't choose to be this way. I am this way. I've tried to be different, but it's not who I am. And it's like, okay, so scientifically, we should be questioned instead of trying to just coddle to everybody and give in to everybody there to make them feel better. We should be asking, well, what's causing it? I mean, what's the reason why this is happening? Is it something that's is it environmental and something like we can't change, that we can't fix, that there's no cure for, there's no treatment for, or is it something there's a treatment for? Obviously, we can't force treatment, but we could still say, like, you don't force a somebody who's got schizophrenia to take their medication.
They do though. Sometimes they do.
Well, unless you're seriously harming somebody or a harm to yourself and they have to put you in a lock you up, then that's a different story. But
Well, I mean, my main thing is it's just when it becomes a thing of ego, where again, it's like you need to be catered to on a certain level, right? I need to stop what I'm doing and deny like the physical evidence in front of my eyes and remember what you want to be called, right? It's just, to me, that communicates pure ego, pure self-centeredness, privilege. The fact that is, it's like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's like the fact that you're that high up on the pyramid that you now need everyone to see you how you see yourself. We all want that, right? That's the goal of every human being, but it's not possible. We can't control what people think about us. And I mean, the other issue too is beyond sports. Now, this is an issue in the military a couple of years ago, and they ended up leaning away from allowing them in. But the idea that our government and our tax dollars need to go towards making someone feel comfortable in their own body, I think everybody would love to get. Probably not everybody, but many people in society nowadays would love to get free plastic surgery and whatever hormonal treatment they can to look better. But we're not doing that to make people feel better, right? But just this one class, and that's the other issue. They can't even define the class.
Yeah, and well, that's
quasi class in the first place.
Yeah, and that's why it's with insurance is almost all plastic surgeries, unless you've been burnt in a major car wreck, unless you've had actual physical damage to your body. It is all considered an elective. It's all considered not a need, but a want, and you can pay for it with cash yourself. Not even insurance companies want to pay for it. So if insurance companies are going to pay for it, then why should the prison system, meaning American taxpayers, or the military, meaning the American taxpayers, pay for it? I mean, it's ridiculous. And not including once you get out in war, out in the field, and all the other issues with that. And the problem is we don't know the side effects of all of this stuff. Like when we know what happens to men when they have low testosterone when they get older. We know all the side effects from that. We know the side effects from women when they have low estrogen when they get older, osteoporosis and everything else, that they're heart problems, everything else they're at risk for. So how is reversing that at a young age going to be any different? I mean, we don't know what type of cancers they haven't been doing it at a large enough level for a long enough time to truly understand even the side effects or the damage that it could do somebody over the lifetime. And now we're trying to say, I mean, we've had instances where girls have been seriously injured by a male coming in there. Cause I'm sorry, it's not like these men that are transitioning to women are coming into these sports and winning by like a tenth of a second, or winning by like 5 kilograms or something. They're winning by like 150 pounds, 200 pounds. They're winning by like minutes, not tenths of a second. And it's like these men who are performing at the worst position they could have in the men's position, all of a sudden come into the women's and they're at the top. And that just shows you how big there of a difference there is biologically between men and women when it comes to sports.
Yeah. And we're kind of shifting a little bit off topic, just shifting away from the court stuff, but I agree with everything you said. And it also, like, it's so brazen of them to want to infect sports, right? I'm not somebody that follows sports, but of the people I know that follow sports, they're not necessarily like super engaged in politics, right? But when you start messing with their sports, you're going to get them engaged in politics. And it's like the hubris on the left side that they are attacking just normal people and their hobbies, and they've got to make everything about themselves. And it's got to be in every facet of where you look. Another thing you made me think of, I'm really appreciative of the fact that Trump brought in RFK and Maha, right? Make America healthy again. Because if you look at these institutions that are selling this kind of stuff, they're very, very confident, right? It's like you said, they're very, very, this child needs this for their safety and well-being. But now we're seeing the greatest number of detransitions, right? So it's kind of like a social wave. But the fact that these, quote unquote, members of intelligentsia, academics, scientists have proven that they are, manipulable and, adherent to the social pressure of their institution, it just shows that these institutions need reforms. And you could apply this to the issue of, child psychology, this hormonal treatment where, if a man needs testosterone, it's impossible to get, but they hand women, right, estrogen, or if you're trans, they'll throw you testosterone. And this stuff is affecting our environment, and it's affecting our kids too. So I think, I love that the Trump administration is bringing these things to battle in court. And I know you could explain the theory as to why he's doing that, but I also like the double pincer, right? Because he's got RFK, Maha, and it's like the left had been so good at pushing from all corners, applying pressure from every corner societally, and now it's just like everyone's woken up and it's pushing back. And I'm excited. I think we're moving in the right direction.
Well, yeah, and that's why I think everybody understands a lot of this stuff. A lot of these executive orders he put in to get to force constitutional rulings. But we can even tie all this craziness that's going on in the Supreme Court with this one to all the stuff that's going on in to do with the immigration and ICE and stuff, like the fact that the mayor of Minnesota and the mayor of Minneapolis and the governor of Minnesota coming out and just automatically saying that the agent was at fault and everything, and everybody's saying no, he wasn't hit, but yet DHS just released medical information today, because I guess the agent gave him permission to, that he actually had internal bleeding. And I'm sorry, if the car barely bumped you or touched you, you wouldn't get internal bleeding. You got to be hit pretty damn hard to get internal bleeding in your torso. That's not an easy thing to do. And I'm sorry, but at that point, anybody who knows, internal bleeding can easily kill you. It can be something that maybe doesn't look that bad, gets internal bleeding. If they can't stop it, you're dead, period. And so that right there justifies, unfortunately, deadly force. Now, because he had to protect himself. If he hadn't done anything, she could have just kept running. He would have gone slamming into the windshield or got rolled up under the freaking wheel or something. I mean, there's no telling what else would have happened if she hadn't been changing, if her body hadn't jerked the wheel the other way or whatever from the action of him trying to defend himself. And even if it had.
Well, one thing, I think it is bad optics. I don't think that it's ever a good thing for anybody who's LEO to have to, kill another person. I think everybody agrees with that on its.
Well, obviously, we don't want.
Same thing with Charlie Kirk. I just maybe I didn't like who she was as a person, but I'm not going to speak ill of the dead for one. Just like with Charlie Kirk, and I challenge anybody who's listening to follow along with that as well. Like, let's not insult or deride those who have passed away. It really is a sad situation. But that being said,
sorry, hold on a second.
I think it's interesting that the left views this as inevitable, because they're like, ICE is engaging in this way. They were going to make this happen no matter what occurred. But really, it's on the right. The way it looks is, okay, this was bound and inevitable to happen because you are going and harassing them in this manner and trying to record these snapshotable moments.
And let's go back.
That's true of the media too.
And let's try to remember. Let's try to get these people to remember something. This is Obama in 2016.
We don't hear any audio. I don't hear any audio.
I don't know why it's not playing the audio through. Let me see something, because it said that it's sharing it through the screen. So it should be.
It looks like the volume's down.
No, it's all the way up.
You might have to do change your audio input setting.
Okay, so even if you can't hear it, the basic is this a video from CNN when they're riding along on Chicago on ICE raids in 2016. And they even talk about how the person that they actually went after ended up being the guy's brother, and so they let him go, wrongfully detained, but ended up getting let go because he was the guy's brother, not the guy they were looking for. And they're mentioning about, even in here, this video, they mention about how the sanctuary cities releasing the people are affecting with their ability to catch them before that's causing it. That's the reason it's causing it. And this is this is ICE under a Democratic president, under Obama in 2016. It's like, okay, so what Trump is doing is nothing new. The only difference is you've got all these Soros-backed NGOs, and something tells me a lot of these nonprofits are sponsored and funded by China and Russia. Now, there has been proof that there's one of them that the money that flows through it actually does come from China, and it's because they want to throw in dissent and division and everything, because then we're weaker against anything they try to come up against. And that's the only difference between now and then, is now you've got all of these paid protesters going out there and causing all of this, all chasing them everywhere and blowing their whistles and literally acting like Nazis. I mean, if you go back and look at Hitler, if you go back in Hitler, what did the Hitler tell all of his Aryan brothers of the Third Reich to do if they saw a Jew? Blow their whistle.
I think you made a better comparison when you put it on China, because I read a book recently called Wild Swans. It was written by a woman who is the middle child of the top Chinese dignitary out of, I think, like the province of Sichuan. But he was ultimately, disgraced and imprisoned and tortured by that regime. And when you read about like their experiences in the cult of Mao and how it became a mark of pride for school children to memorize his platitudes and weekly sayings, right? Oh, I love Mao more than you love Mao. Oh, this person isn't really loving Mao properly, right? And it's like this same level of virtue. So like that pattern of manipulation and this like seizing of control that took place during the Cultural Revolution in China, that's exactly the playbook being used here. That's the playbook on the left.
Look back to even 1970s in Tehran in Iran. Like there was this lady, I got a video sent to me today, and this lady was talking about how in Iran, because she was a Jewish Iranian, and so when whenever it went from a open Western style democracy run by the king, and the Shah or the Ayatollah took over, the Ayatollah Khomeini and their group took over, and they started going after anybody that wasn't Islamic. She asked one of her friends, and the crazy thing is, it was usually the leftist in college who are that are against oppression and everything. For some reason, instead took off their skirts and everything and started throwing on hijabs and dresses, like giving away their so-called freedoms that they claim they were leftist activists wanting in the beginning. And I mean, because if you go back before Iran's revolution, they were actually free. They were ahead of most other Western worlds. They gave women the right to vote before America or anybody else did. I mean, that's how. And if you look at like when it came to religions, she asked her friend, she goes like, why didn't you say anything when they came after the Jewish Iranians? Because we aren't Jewish. It wasn't until they started going after their group that they said anything. Like, well, we're not Jewish, we're not Christian, we're not this, so we didn't do anything. We just kept going with them. And that's kind of like what you got here is it's the left and even the Islam with the Muslim Brotherhood coming at and trying to do the same thing here. I mean, you see the same thing starting to try to happen. The same type of color revolution going on here in America, whether you look at China, whether you look at Iran, I mean, all of that. And you see it throughout history.
They're very good at DAVO or whatever it's called, like deny, accuse. I can't remember what it is. And then you like change order or revert. I can't remember this, but it's basically this tactic where what I'm going to do to you, I'm going to accuse you of doing to me. So
well, I'm going to accuse you of doing what I'm doing.
Right, exactly. So what they
I'm
do,
gonna make everybody think you're doing it when I'm the one really doing it. I'm gonna place blame on you instead of me, and
they
that's what
know
they do.
they know that people are going to be deported. They know ICE is doing operations. There's more deportations under Obama and Biden than either of the periods Trump has been in office. So we know that these things are happening either way. If they only show up when Trump's president, and yet when they show up and they protest in the way that they're protesting, and they like are obviously inciting greater levels of violence as they are, then they get arrested, and all of a sudden it's like first they came from the immigrants, then they came for the protesters. Like,
Oh, sorry, I didn't. It's not doing it for. Let me remove.
okay, okay. He's like, I don't want to hear what you're saying. Yeah, but I mean that's what they're saying. They're saying first they came from the immigrants, then they came for the protesters, and then they're going to say this is feeding into their delusions too, because obviously they have a huge number of LGBT people who think they're going to be rounded up in the future and their rights taken away, even though Trump has been the most pro-gay president in U.S. history. So, I mean, that's really all I had to say. So you can come back.
No, I was trying to get a, get a break in real quick. And I thought I already had you on your solo stage. And so that's what happened. I was trying to just do it where we had the solos. But no, I mean, yeah, it's getting the same way and it's ridiculous. And we're seeing all this division and everything. What people got to understand is we got to come back together. We got to quit letting, because they're not doing it for the benefit of the American people. They're doing it for the power they want. They're doing it because Trump is not a neocon globalist, and he is trying to do everything he can to actually go back to the Constitution, go back to the way the originality of the Constitution and the way our founding fathers meant for it to be, instead of going the neocon globalist way that everybody wants. What people don't understand is his changes, that the stuff that his actions in Venezuela, his actions in Iran, his him trying to get Greenland when everybody acts like this is something new and it's not. Actually, back in 1914 or 1917, we bought what was then the Danish whatever islands, or now known as the U.S. Virgin Islands. We had already given our interest in purchasing Greenland, that we were already interested in getting it, and then we defended it during World War II from Germany. We helped the Danish defend off. And like Trump said today, he goes, all the Danish are going to do is stick one more snow dog sled up there, and that's not enough to stop Russia or China. And so I'm going to go to the shared page, and hopefully this time it'll switch over pretty quick and do it right. Nope. Okay. So
I got another 9 minutes before I finish it.
But I don't think what people understand is, okay, so when you flatten the globe out, this is the northern part of Russia. And obviously China and Russia work together. These are all Russian bases in the Arctic. That's Greenland. We've got a couple U.S. bases here in Alaska, but that's it. So there's all of this open space here and all down here, because right now, yes, we have a small military base there, but we don't have ICBMs. We do not have a naval base. We do not have a submarine base. We don't have any of that. We have a couple listening stations there, and that's it. And that's the reason why, yes, you do have the rare earth minerals and the gold and everything that's starting to be more exposed as more and more glaciers melt. But also the problem is you got to think a lot of this stuff is no longer freezing up here. A lot of the glaciers are melt. So a lot of this is open all year for new shipping lanes. And China and Russia, according to a U.S. commander, they're already up there doing that. And then you got Canada up here in the north that actually has allowed 10,000 Chinese to do forest training up here in the cold, which makes no sense because they have frozen forest there in China. So why are they doing it literally on the same continent as the United States, unless they're trying to spy on us or they're trying to get a foothold? And so that's what this Greenland is about. The way it's looking is, we either take it now, because you got to think it's hard to see, but this little island right here, which probably isn't more than a couple 100 miles from Greenland, is Russian with Russian bases on it. So we don't want to leave this area here unprotected, because national security wise, strategicness, ability to watch, and a lot of their ICBMs are up in these northern bases too. So we want to have better ability of being able to deter those missile deterrents, and also being able to shoot them out of the sky if we need to.
I think it's also prescient because, this is a total reworking and reshifting of our, foreign policy and assumptions about, one, America's role, two, its who its allies are, and talking about Canada, talking about the UK, and obviously we know that they've taken an extremely anti-democratic turn. France has never been our closest ally, but I definitely see that there's just there's a natural shift between our two spheres of influence, and we're moving away. This is the realization. This has been decades in the coming, because even though they were our allies, anybody who's traveled and talked to educated Europeans, they have nothing nice to say about us. They people don't like number one. Even if your best friend's number one, if you depend on them for protection, there's some resentment there. Always.
Oh, yeah. Well, and here's another thing as well I don't think people understand is this is America first. This is for rolling peace through strength, and that is to get a hold of the Western Hemisphere, to have the strategic controls both in the Pacific and the Atlantic and the Arctic, and then to push out the influence of China, Russia, and Iran out of the Western Hemisphere, which is what Venezuela was more about than even getting control of the drugs or the cartel leaders or anything like that. Obviously, that's a big issue, because a lot that funds a lot of terrorism and a lot of Chinese and stuff like that. But a lot of this was to get China. Venezuela was looking towards BRICS. Cuba, not Cuba, but Colombia is looking towards BRICS. We want, obviously, the Panama Canal. China was trying to get a foothold in there. Just think about it. If we get into a World War III and China's included, the amount of time it would take for us to get new ships, if they were to knock out some of our Pacific fleet, we needed to get new battleships, or we needed to get new aircraft carriers over to the Pacific Ocean, and we didn't have the ability to get through the Panama Canal unimpeded. Think of the extra month or so that it would take us to go all the way around southern coast of America, the South America, almost all the way down to the Antarctic, and then back up to the Pacific. You're talking a month or a month and a half, 2 months of travel time versus a week. And so this is strategy of, okay, let's get control of more resources so we're not having to worry about stuff, and let's get our enemies out of our backyard. And also at the time, we're throwing Tehran into turmoil by cutting off their oil, by hurting them. We're going to pretty much throwing Cuba, and they're going to end up having to go pretty soon, because they don't have any oil coming to them now, and they lost billions of dollars a year from the protecting Maduro. And then we got to think of the fact that because of all the sanctions on Russia, all the oil that was coming from Venezuela up to Russia, it's going to make it harder now for Russia to carry this war on, because somebody said, oh, Russia has plenty of oil. Yeah, they got plenty of oil to fuel all their cars and all their people's homes. But if they start pulling from that to keep on fueling the war, their people are going to start rising up. Their people are going to start getting really angry. So,
well, I think you're right. Well, honestly, I do think Russia's a better natural ally for us, because the thing driving Russia and China together is mere opposition to NATO as a collective sphere. And then there's also the question of, we've been part of these permanent alliances like NATO, and it's been told this is the best for us, for the United States. And once we tear away from this is going to be the end of us as a global superpower. I don't think that's accurate. And I think that even when Rome overextended and then retracted its forces, this happened multiple times throughout its history as it tried to move into the Balkans as well as past the Danube in Europe.
If we just went back to where we were and we had the whole Western Hemisphere, Canada, Greenland, all that, Southern Hemisphere, all that pulled out of Europe and everything, it'd be just like before World War I, when Russia came trampling in the first time. Who came begging for our help? Europe.
Well, we were told this was in our national interest, but when you look at how our foreign policy is played out, what it's really done is it's not benefited all of our society. Our infrastructure is falling apart. Kids are barely educated. Obviously, wealth has been
all these
taken
other
out of the middle
countries.
class. It's gone to a select handful of people in the United States, and it just so happens that these spheres and circles of influence happen to fall in the same parameters as those who are pushing the globalist agenda. So, the northeastern hub of universities, you've got military industrial complex, and then obviously, pharmaceutical, medical company. Everything is a racket these days, and it's controlled by this select class that's pushed free trade and this globalization, and they benefited while they sold the rest of us out, trying to become a member of a global elite, right? That was their goal, and this is a complete push and denial of that. And the truth is, I think that as we do that, our friends and enemies will shift, but also, like you're saying, China's got a huge demographic problem. It's going to have internal conflict. Certainly, we're seeing that in Iran. Obviously, that's Venezuela is going to start shifting towards us right now, and like you said, Cuba, case after case after case. Argentina now has a libertarian government that's doing fantastic. It's a great, this real world example of how when you actually scale back government, society and the middle class and the average person flourishes. This is the best case study that we could possibly have to push this in the face of the left and even, the rhinos that want to keep growing the government and the fact that federal workers are being fired, even though unemployment numbers are actually what was predicted, right? Or the tariffs are going to crash the economy, right? That was what we were told. But that goes to say, who do the economists work for, right?
Well,
They get
and the
paid
thing was
for
is,
by the institutions, right?
but anyways, when it had to come with tariffs, nobody really knew what was going to happen. It was all a guesstimate because nobody had ever tried that much in tariffs since before World War One. I mean, since we had switched, after World War One, when we switched to a tax system.
Ron Paul, he's not a fan of tariffs, but if you read any other kind of school of
I'm saying nobody has actually enacted them though. Nobody's actually done it though, is what I'm saying. Not that other people haven't planned or said they were going to do it, but nobody's actually done it. Trump's the first person to do this many tariffs at once since the end of World War II when we switched from tariffs to the tax.
That's the operable factors, the fact that we got off the gold standard and we're now on a fiat currency, and now we have all this artificial financialization and valuation through network effect, where debt all of a sudden becomes an asset because you are a bigger company and you can collateralize that and you don't have to pay taxes. So, no, I agree with you, but tariffs have worked. The tariffs were the basis of how Europe accumulated wealth and power, and historically, and the same thing with fiat, right? Like I think it was the third Chinese empire collapsed because they started printing paper money, and it's happened throughout history. And okay, we're technologically advanced, but are we so technologically advanced that these natural laws don't apply to us anymore? Maybe, I don't know. AI, maybe.
Yeah, no, I got you. And no, we're getting the same thing, but I guess it's about time you got to go because it's 5:46. I don't know if you got to jump on the call or not.
Over. All right. Well, good luck, man. Good luck closing out. Thanks for having me.
Yep. See you later. But I guess we can kind of wrap up where I was on Greenland. See, I mean, this is what we're really seeing this time is President Trump's America First, peace through strength. Is this all about switching to a more, not necessarily nationalist in the fact of just the United States, but looking at the United States in our hemisphere versus fighting endless wars and nation building across the pond over in the Eastern hemisphere, which makes a whole lot more sense than having to do everything over there. Now, obviously, like with, I know we're getting ready to do some short business in Iran. That's why we're pulling all the Americans out of a lot of the bases and stuff. But that's because Iran's now the estimates have come out according to the prince that's in exile, I guess, here in the United States. He's saying that according to the people he's talked into, the estimates of the deaths are 12,000. Now, obviously, the Iranian ambassador tried to say that it was the IDA, it was Iranian special forces or special ops or their version of the CIA that was over there. Mossad was over there shooting everybody. It's like, so you're telling me you've lost that much control of your country? Yeah, no. Yeah, right. You're trying to blame it on them when you know it's you. Because it's been a consistent repeat. Every time their people rise up and try to protest, they end up either shooting them or the people they arrest, they hang them on the town square, as they still do hangings there. And like I was saying earlier, it's amazing how if you look at Iran back in the 1979, before that, it was actually more progressive and more forward moving than when it came to women's rights than European nations and the Western nations were. Then it got set back like 100 years when this movement happened. And like the one lady, it was a Jewish Iranian that was talking about when her parents got out in the 80s, is if we don't watch out, that's what's going to happen here. And that's, I talked about another previous one. If you look at one of our previous episodes where we did the 100-year plan for the Muslim Brotherhood, I mean, they announced that this is what they're trying to do, is literally take over America and make it an Islamic nation. They want to make it an Islamic state like they did, like Iran happened to. Now, obviously, Iran's probably going to fall apart before that happens, but we've got to start watching with that. And then as far as it goes with ICE, I mean, the new stuff that came out today about the injuries to it proved that the ICE officer was well within his right to protect himself. With these, none of this stuff that is happening now when it comes to ICE or deportations or movements or accidental arrest of people who are American but then getting released has that happened before. It happened under Obama. It happened under Biden. It happened under Bush. It happened under Clinton. It's always happened. It's never been something that didn't happen. But you're only noticing it or seeing it now because the media is pushing it. That's the narrative they're pushing. That's the stuff you're seeing on the news. Instead of just making one story about it and then not really pushing it, but not these nonprofits, not pushing people out there as professional protesters and everything, you weren't seeing as much. And that's what we're seeing now is we're seeing more of this because you got all these professional protesters out here. I mean, even Laura Ingham went out there and asked one of the girls, do you have a job? And the girl screams, I'm getting paid right now. And it's kind of obvious. If you go look at their signs, they're no matter what city they're in, except for a couple that are generic, the majority of them are all high dollar signs that are same from city to city to city. Every once in a while, you'll see some grassroots cardboard boxes written from hand, or even if they were on a cheap poster board, it's not a high gloss poster board and it's written with a Sharpie, not printed. And that's what we're having the problem with is we got all these printed, it's paid. And as long as we keep letting that divide us, then we'll keep having the problems we have. I mean, I got time. I guess I'll go ahead and show it since I've got the people here, but I don't know if any of y'all saw this video. I don't know if you can hear it. Last time I did it on here, y'all were able to hear it. So if y'all can't hear it, let me know. But this is the James O'Keefe video that they posted just last night. And this guy got honeypotted. He was a Secret Service agent for J.D. Vance, and he was literally giving up J.D. Vance's routes and pictures and metadata of where they were and everything. I mean, it's just sick that this is the way it is, because the way it used to be is when you worked as a Secret Service, it didn't matter who the man was in office. That's not who you're protecting. You're protecting the office and the station of the office and what it holds to America, not the actual man running it. And now everybody's even still getting political when it comes to protecting the president. Because before it didn't matter whether you agree with the president or not, you still protected them because you loved your country. I don't hear it. I guess I gotta try to run the full video. I don't think I heard anything on there. I was trying to see if I could hear it, but I didn't hear it in the background when I was playing it. So yeah, so I just pulled it off. But yeah, pretty much, I mean, it's disgusting what this guy was giving this girl and the information that he gave out and he let get leaked out. It could have literally seriously gotten JD Vance, VP JD Vance injured, or his family. And then on top of that, now Secret Service is going to have to change a lot of stuff just to make sure that the next time they go anywhere that there's not a terrorist waiting there to hit them with an RPG or a SAM. Because I mean, he literally showed with metadata where Marine One parks at JFK. He literally took a picture of him standing behind a C-130 with metadata at the base there in DC in Virginia as they were loading up the motorcades. That's all classified information. That's classified intelligence. You don't show that. He was showing pictures of how many cars were in the motorcade and what routes they were taken to in the UAE when they went over in Europe. Over in the Middle East, they were actually showing the route that the cars took. I mean, he also even at one point told them that, next week he's going to be in Minnesota and then he's going to be in Ohio and then he's going to be in Florida, literally giving out Vice President Vance's location before he ever went there. And that's what this guy was doing. It's just disgusting. And that this is what we're getting to because of all the rhetoric and the division and the divisiveness of the left. And because we can't just like JD Vance said the other day, is you can sit there and disagree on policy. You can sit there and attack the president and the vice president, but you don't go after the federal law enforcement who are just doing their job. This argument that they're not real police. Yeah, they're not local police officers, but they are real law enforcement. They are federal law enforcement. They train the same amount of time that any other the other police officer or federal officer goes. And actually, the place that they train at in Altesia, New Mexico, most sheriff's departments and police departments actually send their people there to train them with them, because that's how much better the training is there. And then they do, like with any other police department, they have a training officer when they get back on, once they get to their station, and they're with that training officer for another 6 months to a year. So they don't just do a month or two of training and then get thrown out on the streets and give them their own car. They go through a lot of training. They have to go through pretty much basic training, or pretty much like a police academy. And then they have to go through field training. So it's ridiculous that people are saying, oh, this is all. It's not. So we've got to stop this. And like I said, I wish I could have. I got to figure out how to get the audio playing correctly on these videos so I can play some more. But I was wanting to also play the video from the congressional hearing this morning, where the doctor literally would not answer the question, can men have babies? I mean, that should be an easy answer. No, they can't. We're not asking if somebody a girl who says she's a man has a baby can have a baby. No, we're talking about, can a biological male have a baby? And the doctor would not answer a simple question of yes. I mean, that's where it's gotten to these days. I mean, that's how ridiculous the left has gotten. And I was trying to play that video from earlier that you can get, that's from CNN, when they went out with ICE back in 2016. They weren't attacking Obama for doing the same thing Trump's doing, but they were going out on the same roundups that UCI is doing now, but Obama was doing it. So, like I said, this isn't something new we're doing. But we'll be, like I said, later, this year, we're planning to be Patriot Pair Channel and Network. We're all planning to broadcast from CPAC. So I'm going to be there all 3 days, or all 4 days. I'm hoping to broadcast and get some good interviews during those 4 days. From there, I'll obviously be there with Eddie of Patriot Pair Channel. It's his network, but we broadcast on it. And so that's going to be a nice experience, getting to go to CPAC for the first time. Also, please check out my website going across the bottom of the screen there, No Kings on the Hill with drlaw.com. There you can get our weekly blogs that we put up, also any of our current and past episodes of the podcast. And then I do TikTok lives every day. So check me out on TikTok, follow all my social media site, all my social pages on the homepage, and come check out the lives, and you can help try to decide what maybe the subject is we cover next week and stuff. I know we're going to start doing some more stuff on upcoming midterm elections and everything, and covering different candidates and stuff in the major races they're seeing. But I would like to also thank you all for joining us today. Obviously, I know Joe had to leave early. He's had some personal stuff to take care of. And so before we wrap up, I do want to leave you with one thought. When I was thinking about the subject lines for today's episode, one phrase kept coming to mind. There's nothing that happens in any of these stories that can't be summed up by this: when the rule of law and constitutional morality weaken, chaos ensues. And that's what we've seen. We've lost our constitutional morality, our morality, period. And nobody's really following the rules of law. The U.S. Constitution is not at the mercy of activist statutes, are not redefined when our culture is shifted, and a sovereign nation does not endure when the commander-in-chief is too scared to defend it. Whether it's the Supreme Court, Minnesota, or the Arctic, today's news all end at the same question: does the United States of America rule by the rule of law or by the ruling elite? On No Kings on the Hill, we plan to point that out loud and clear and without hesitation. If you like what you heard today, make sure to subscribe, follow whichever one found the platform you're on whenever you get your podcast videos. Tell a friend who's over the narrative and ready for the facts. Comment below, start the conversation, let us know what you think. Also, please like, share, because the conversation never ends after the episode. Also, check out our website, like I said before, and then also stay on our socials so you don't miss what's next. We're just getting warmed up, and there's a lot more to come. No kings, no narrative, just the law, the facts, the truth, and we will see you. Well, it's not really see you next time. I got a couple more minutes here. I don't want to quite end it this early. If y'all have any questions or anything that anybody that's watching current live right now, let me know. and I'll try to take a couple questions here at the end before I end it. Usually, like I said, I still have my co-host, so it's still going pretty good at this time, but I'm about to jump on my TikTok live and I'll cover some subjects there, go over these videos that I couldn't fully play on here and do all of that. But again, thank you for anybody who's actually followed me over from TikTok and started watching on YouTube and caught it on here. And then if y'all have any, like I said, any suggestions for the next subject or content that you think we should cover next week, please go to the website. You can leave a comment there, or you can follow me on TikTok and catch me on my TikTok lives and let me know there, either one. So I guess I'm good. Well, yeah, we're just going to have to leave it a little early tonight. There's not that many people. Well, nobody really messaged anyways. It still shows we got 400 people in here. So definitely appreciate all of the views and the watching, people that are watching it. And I will see y'all next Wednesday. I know it was a couple minutes short tonight, but y'all have a good night.